Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm Danny from UKTI China, and I'm the head of the education technology and higher education. I'm really glad I can share some information with you about China. Okay, first, I want to introduce you that UKTI China, we are focused on 5 areas, which is education technology, early childhood education, British-style schools, higher education development, and vocational and professional education training. So these are main 5 areas. So if you want to do business in China, so if you can fit in these 5 categories, we can help you. I will share you some data. This first data is from the National Bureau of Statistics, which is posted by the 2015 February, and this is the basic information for the population of China. And also, you can see that from 0 to 15, this is number, and we have around 75% of the population, which is fit for the K-12 education market. So this China's education system is quite different from UK. So from 0 to 5, the students were mainly in the nurseries and in the kindergartens. And then from 6 to 11, they were in the primary school for 6 years. And from 12 to 14, which is a middle school for 3 years. After the middle school, because the student already finished the 9 years compulsory education, which is 9 years. After these 9 years, the student can choose into the 3 different routes. The first one is secondary specialized school. The second one is a high school. And the third one is vocational high school. So most of the students will choose the middle one, which is a high school, because from the high school, they can directly enter the undergraduate study, which is university. And after that, they will study postgraduate for 3 years. But if they choose to the first, the pathway, and they can then enter into the junior college, which is another kind of 2 or 3 years specialized study. If they finish the junior college, after they get the diploma, they still can get into the university, but they need to study another 2 years. And then go to study the postgraduate studies. And for the vocational high school students, after they finish that, they can directly go to find a job in China. So this is the structure of the China's education system. So no matter your the business or your product is fit into no matter which category you are fit in, I believe that there is a market for you in China, because here are some data from the Ministry of Education, which posted by the 2014 February. As you can see that majority of the schools in China are state schools, or you can say public schools, which is owned by the government. Only very small parts are private, but only have one exceptional focus is the nursery and kindergartens. So altogether, we have around 198 and 500. Oh, yes. For the nursery and kindergartens, we have over half of the number are private. This is really, really rare in China. And for the last year, this percentage was 67.2%. And for this year, the public kindergartens, the number are raising up. So that means the government are expanding so their coverage in China. And then for the primary school and middle school, even for the the high school, secondary specialized school, and vocational high school, most of them are still public. And for the universities, and right now we only got 1/3 are private, university. Majority of them are still public. So if you want to do your business in China, or you want to sell some products in China, the best way is you need to find a kind of government project. So especially for education. If you can't find a government project, then you can just directly approach to either it's a public primary school or public high school, or even for the university. But the reason why we want to focus on the kindergarten for the UKTI China is we have updates of the one-child policy in China, because in the past, every family can only have 1 child. But from this year, every family can have 2 kids. And that means there is a huge amount, maybe in next 5 years, they need the best quality kindergartens. So right now we have a huge amount of the inquiries about that. The Chinese kindergarten, they want to find a UK partner to set up a high-end kindergarten for Chinese middle-class children. Okay, this is also a data from the Ministry of Education. It shows you what's the market size in China. So if you want to focus on into like one area, maybe like kindergarten or primary schools, so what's like the best kind of market size you can fit in? And here are some key policies and facts. So Chinese governments, they really focus on the education development. So even now, they're still pursuing like the equality of the education resources all around China. But this is a very, how to say, challenging task. So how to achieve that is the Chinese government will focus on the education technology, to use the education technology to let those like the suburb areas, those schools and those like kindergartens can receive also the same quality of the teaching resources. And talk about education technology, the opportunities are mainly on the contents. Because if you have a kind of platform, or you have kind of like the products, or you have ideas, if you enter into China, it's very easy you have like the copycats. You know, China is a very like huge country, and we got a lot of like graduates, and they can easily, those companies can easily just copy your ideas. But for the content, this is crucial. If you have your own content, that means it's difficult for others to copy you, and you can occupy like a certain market in China. Also talk about the distance learning. In China, we have we have our own like the platforms like FutureLearn. If you got any kind of online resources, it's also a good way to approach to those like the MOOC platforms in China. They can just use your contents in China. And also the hardware and software for the classrooms or after-class tutoring or assessments. Because right now, China still, in tier 1 cities like Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen, the quality or like the hardware in the classrooms already got a certain level. But in those tier 2 and tier 3 cities, still have space to development. So if you got like the hardwares, you think that it's fit for like Chinese markets, and we can help you to introduce them to our like stakeholders in China. And also for the teacher training as well. Like the same situation, like in those tier 1 cities, they got the best teachers, and we got like the most like the like key primary schools or kindergartens or high schools, they got the best teachers. But in the other like schools, the teaching resources is not that sufficient. But what's challenging? Still, the infrastructure in China is not as good as developed countries. So this is, how to say, the key challenge. So if we want to sell some like the online programs to China, maybe we found that in certain provinces in China, especially in those tier 3 cities, their internet connection is not that good. So we need to figure out how to build the infrastructure in China and to let those like the good quality products can get into Chinese market. And also in China, the education still is examination oriented, because everyone need to pass the examinations after they finish the middle school. They need to get into the high school. They need to pass the examinations. After they finish the high school, they need to pass the examination to get the university. And after finishing university, they need to get the examination to go to the postgraduate studies. So every stage, there is an examination. So if that kind of like the service or products or platforms can fit in this kind of like method, which can help the students to have a better results in the examinations, the parents and students will definitely welcome them. But the Chinese government right now also mentioned that we cannot always focus on the examinations. We need to build up the students like their own interests, like build up students' own like the overall quality, not just for the examination. But how to say, there's a debate there. It's very difficult to achieve that at the moment. And also, as I mentioned, the public schools are the most suppliers. So if your content right now is fit into the British curriculum, or is fit into maybe like the American curriculum, the first step you get into China is you can approach international schools because they were using the British curriculum or like the American curriculum. For the public schools, they use Chinese curriculum. So you need to think out maybe your products or your contents need to find a Chinese partner to localize it, to fit into the Chinese curriculum. In that way, the public school can use them. Otherwise, your your market is not that big. It will be very small, only focus on the international school. But the majority of Chinese students is still learning the Chinese curriculum. And also for the IP, this is an issue. So you need to figure out how to protect your the technology or how to protect your own ideas in China. Chinese partner, I mentioned. Also the language. As you may know that in China focuses on the English language training. So right now from the primary school, even from the kindergarten, the students start to learn English. But still, the Chinese students' English is not that good. So especially for the parents. So when the products in China and majority of the decision will be made by the parents. So the parents need to know your products. If that is in English, for some circumstances, you need to explain it to a Chinese parents and how to let them understand your products. But if you have the Chinese version, that will be much easier for you. Okay, so how to approach in China is, except we have the UKTI China team, and based in the Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Chongqing. And we also have the one embassy and 4 consulates around surrounding China. And for the other cities, we do not have the embassy and consulates. We have the British embassies or consulates outreach offices can cover the rest of China. Also, we have the CBBC, which is China-Britain Business Council, and they are UKTI's contract development partner. UKTI as a government department, we can help you to build up channels with the Chinese government, like central government or local government. But if you really want to do business in China, the best way is first we will lead you to approach CBBC because they have a lot of local contacts and they have 13 offices in China, including all tier 1 cities like Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen, and also some tier 2 cities like Nanjing, Wuhan, Shenyang, Xi'an, Chengdu, Chongqing, Hangzhou, and Qingdao. And then the tier 3 cities like Changsha. If you are the newcomer to China, I do suggest that because in tier 1 cities, it's really, really competitive. Maybe you can think about to get into the tier 2 cities or tier 3 cities because we can find the best support from the local government. And they do not have so many the competitors there, especially for the UK companies. And right now we have a very close connection with the Chinese, the key stakeholders like the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Commerce, and the Ministry of Science and Technology in China with their think tanks. So if you think that your products which fit into the government projects, and you can always contact with us, and we can just introduce you to those think tanks or to those ministries. Either it's the central government or local government to find the best way to keep you into the contacts. Okay, today we not got so many Chinese companies come to the beta this year, but we do have the National Institute of Education Science, which is they have the Future School Lab, and also the NetDragon is here, and VTron and Beijing 3D Education. So if you have time, maybe you can chat with them to find whether there's any opportunity for you.